Hi, everybody. I'm Rajendra Ramoon Maharaj, the new producing artistic director of American Stage. Thank you for taking some time this evening to hear a little bit about my vision for the theater and learn a little bit about our season. What an unbelievable time we have come through in our country, in our state, in our city. And more than ever, the theater becomes necessary to remind us that we are more alike than different, to bring people of all walks of life together, to sit in the empty dark, to be awakened, to dream, and to know that the stories we tell are the stories of the best parts of the human spirit, the best parts of our country. And rooted in that are stories that uplift diversity, inclusion, and celebrate the power of the human spirit to overcome. When I was growing up, I used to go to the theater, and it always was a place where I was able to find peace out of the broken pieces of my life, a place where I could dream without a ceiling, and one night be in Camelot, and the next be in the 1950s in Greece, or be at the turn of the century, or the future. That's the power of theater. It unlocks our imagination. It gives us the ability to see a world that is yet unrealized and make us all better in the pursuit of that dream. As we look at American Stage and the future, it is bright, it is exciting, and it is because we as a community know how important this theater is to the very character, not just of our city, our state, but our nation. Next year, we turn 45 years, and some of you have been with us from the very beginning, and you've seen many different faces change over the years, but at the heart of our mission has always been this: to uplift, to inspire, to educate. And in this time of a renaissance that is happening at American Stage and around our world, we welcome you back. And we say, thank you for journeying with us. Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for dreaming and knowing that the best days are still in front of us. And so on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the entire staff, and all the countless artists and members of our community, thank you for allowing us to be able to be part of your lives. Dr. Maya Angelou says, if the only prayer you ever say in life is thank you, then that will be enough. And I thank you for allowing me to sit in the chair and to lead this very important organization into the future. Theater, when it works best, reflects all of us. We can find ourselves in any story, in any time, because at the end of the day, it is the things that make us similar, that remind us that we have at the very heart of our spirit the call to be seen, to be heard, and to know that our stories matter. I know, as I know my name, that the gift of the theater can change lives. I've seen it in my own life, change the very course and trajectory of my life. I've been very fortunate in my journey to sit and work at some of the most important theaters in America and around the world. But there's something so special about American Stage. I can feel it when I meet our patrons in the lobby. I can see it in the artists and the excitement and the zeal and zest they have working and telling the story. I know it because I can see it in children who come to the theater and for the first time see the power of the empty space. So I just want to take some time and thank each of you for the journey that will be unfolding in front of us over this next season and years to come. As you may be aware of now, we are in the midst of The Odd Couple, and it's a beautiful revival. It's a funny revival by the great Neil Simon, running until November 21st. And we've had so many wonderful audiences come from diverse backgrounds that are just so excited by looking at this, what some might call a chestnut, through a new lens, through representing New York City in a way that really reflects New York City. So from the diversity to the representation of LGBTQ, a story about the power of humanity, the power of brotherhood, the power of people who you don't think would get along, finding a way. And isn't it important more than now and ever to start laughing, to look and find the joy, to be able to be in a theater and laugh together, even though we have our mask on, because, you know, we want to make sure everyone's safe, but to hear laughter in the empty space after such a very, very long time. Wow, it's music to my ears. And so we thank you for being part of The Odd Couple. And again, if you haven't seen it yet, there's still time. We close on November 21st. I'm telling you, this is a show you don't want to miss. And then after that, we go to Jacob Marley's Christmas Carol, which will be my first show as a director at American Stage. And we're setting it in the 1980s punk era. And so you know that the story of Marley and the journey of him in the pursuit of enlightenment and finding salvation, particularly during the holidays when so many people struggle, to be able to gather in the space with our families and friends and be reminded of the message of community, of second chances, of redemption. I'm so excited to be able to present this beloved story and this amazing adaptation to our audiences. It truly is a gift that I hope that you'll share with your families. And then after that, we're going to be working on our 21CV New Play Festival in January, in the new year. And it's really important in the American theater more than ever that we create spaces that cultivate the next August Wilson or David Henry Wang or the next Lynn Nottage or even the next Rajendra Ramoon Maharaj. It's important for us to create these spaces because playwriting and storytelling has become so imperative. So many amazing and challenging things have been happening in our country, so many awakenings and movements. And it is our responsibility to be able to tap into the next generation of voices that remind us of this moment in human history, but also can look at the past and the future and create worlds yet unseen for generations yet unborn. At the very heart of our season is the love of theater. And because you have walked with us through so many ups and downs and good days and bad days, we want you to know that when we say the love of theater, we also say the love of you and your love of American Stage. And I hope that love will translate as you continue to look at the holidays, possibly making donations to support our work at American Stage. As you know, we're a non-for-profit theater and we rely so much on the work and bringing these artists and encouraging this amazing staff and all of the things that go into running a multi-million-dollar regional theater. And so as you look at your holiday giving, please think about including us because it does make a difference. And we know what it's like to not have the arts in our lives. We felt that during the pandemic and continue to feel it. And so we're so grateful to come back and to be able to provide this safe hamlet where artistic incubators and voices can be heard, the next generation of American playwrights. And how cool is that American Stage gets to be part of that platform. So I hope that you will continue to support us in years to come. After that, in February, we have one of the most funny plays that has engulfed the American theater over the last few years, The Schoolgirls, or AKA the African Mean Girls play, which is this wonderful play that takes place in Africa. And it focuses on the world of pageants and all the many issues that are tied into it. And it's so funny, but like our beloved symbol of the theater mask and the comedic mask, there are really important messages about colorism, about female empowerment, about Africa and the world around us. And so I hope that you will come and bring your families and laugh and journey as we tell this really funny but story about the world. I always believe that the theater works best when it exposes us to different stories from around the world. And the African Mean Girls play is a great example of that. So I hope that you will journey with that as well. And then we go into what has become one of the most beloved traditions in St. Pete, which is our park show. And that is Footloose. Footloose. Wow, what an unbelievable movie. What a wonderful show that's become. Literally one of the fabric movies of the culture and character of America. I dare anyone to play that song by Kenny Loggins and not want to dance or hum or sing along. And so we're really excited to be able to bring folks back to the park to come together and celebrate this beloved American musical and film with this really exciting dynamic score that is the story of Footloose, a story of a community, a story about America, and people trying to come together and celebrate the power of gathering and the power of dance. And that evening, we're going to really, throughout the run, look at celebrating, particularly as we do gala opening night, the influence of dance in our lives, the joy we get from dancing and celebrating, the power of gathering and celebrating movement. And so more to come on that in the future. But we are just so grateful and excited to be able to finally come back after such a long time to present Footloose to you. And then we're going to be closing our season in July of 22 with one of the plays that has influenced some of the greatest American playwrights, including myself. It is The Dutchman by the great, prolific Amira Baraka. Amira Baraka was one of the biggest influences in August Wilson's work. And we, as you know, at American Stage, were one of the few theaters in our nation to complete the entire cycle of August Wilson's plays. And so you think, what a gift that has been to the American theater and the world theater. And that might not have been if there wasn't for Amir Baraka and his beautiful, timeless play called The Dutchman. And so I hope that as we continue to journey through the year, that we will be able to find time to celebrate the theater, time to be able to gather again and dream without a ceiling. You know, before I started at American Stage, I had the honor and the privilege of being part of the creative team of the first African-American opera produced by the world famous Metropolitan Opera House in New York. And it's somewhat 130 plus years. This was the first time that they had produced an opera by a living African-American composer and librettist. And to tell you, the energy and the journey around it was so unbelievable and continues to shape me every day when I sit in the chair at American Stage. The idea of that every night when someone comes to the theater, that is their first experience. And the responsibility and the gift that we have at American Stage and we as a community have to make sure that it doesn't just entertain, educate, but most importantly, awakens a fire for that person to come back to the theater and share it with their community. So I want to challenge, I want to encourage all of you to think about as you come to the theater, to bring someone that might not have been to the theater in the past, who might not think theater is for them. There's room at the table at American Stage for everyone. There's room for all of us to know that the best days for us are still ahead of us. And as I look at the fabric of the American theater, American Stage will continue to grow, not just here in our community, also on our state level and then our national profile, as we look to having relationships with other theater companies around the nation, having our beautiful and powerful work go to other cities. It's so cool that we work at a place called American Stage. And so anywhere we lay our hat in America, that is our stage. And so I hope that you will continue to look at how you can support us, how you will be able to, by your presence and your prayers, as my grandmother would say, to uplift us. We lost a lot of theaters this year, some really great theaters across our nation. And it's really a test and a testimony to each of you that American Stage is standing strong and that we still have our lights and our doors open, but most importantly, we have our arms open, welcoming back our patrons and our communities, but also welcoming new people and communities to the theater time. So I hope that the theater will continue to be a place where you can see yourself reflected, but also see other stories and other people that you might not know that you have a connection with. And that's really the beauty of what we do. At the end of the day, we are more alike than different. But in that difference, there is so much possibility for growth and room and humility and grace and awakenings. And I know that it's, as the holidays are rapidly approaching and we're thinking of the 1,000,001 things that we have to do for the world, give yourself the gift of coming to the theater. Give yourself the gift of being able to sit in the empty space and dream a little, to exhale a little, and to know that the best days are often when you give yourself the gift of entertainment. And how lucky we are to be alive right now in the world, how lucky we are to be able to still have American Stage be a lighthouse for all of us, to be a safe harbor for all of us, to be a place that we call our artistic home for all of us. What a gift, and what a gift of your presence in the character and the consciousness of our theater. We need you more than ever, because only together, when we come together as a village, are we able to make lasting changes in our community. Only when we come together in service may the theater and ourselves move closer to those very, very American ideals that we hold so close, that everyone deserves to be seen, that everyone deserves to be heard, that everyone deserves to know that their story matters. When I was growing up, I had a very challenging childhood, like many folks, but the place where I always found solace, besides church, was always in the theater. And many in the theater say that we see the theater as a church, a sacred place where people come to lay down their burdens and be uplifted. And so I hope that you will always think of American Stage as that. And we may not always agree on the art. We may not always agree on how the art is presented, but we all can agree that the art is necessary. And what is one person's, teacup might be another person's ocean. And as we approach the theater, I always think about that the ocean's a big place, and it's our responsibility and our gift to fill it with as much light and laughter and tears and joy as we possibly can. I'm so excited to be able to sit in the chair, to be able to have this moment with all of you as we look to the future. The American theater has weathered many storms, no greater than what we have faced with the pandemic. And if the American theater's main job is to reflect the character and the consciousness of our nation, then this is an opportunity and a moment in our theater history, city history, state history, and world history that we will never get back. I know that growing up at my grandmother's knee, she would always say to me, the ancestors are watching. And when I think of the theater, and I think of the stories that we're going to tell over the next few years at American Stage and years to come, I know that the ancestors are watching, but they also want to be seen. and they also want to be heard. And some of those stories have not been uplifted in the way that we can and should. And my vow tonight is to be able to make sure that American Stage is a place that really reflects all of America. I believe, being a son of immigrants and first-generation American, Indo-Afro-Caribbean, that this is the greatest country in the world. And the opportunities that were provided to my family, my ancestors, many who were domestics and laborers, to see the ebb and flow through hard work, through education, through the arts, through dreams and faith, in a few generations, the accomplishments, that doesn't just happen. It happens because places like America, places like American Stage, provide that space for folks with funny names from the Caribbean like myself to dream of being able to run institutions like American Stage, or nations like Barack Obama, to be able to provide spaces. And I think that it's really important as we move forward to really uplift and support the theater more than ever. And I'm not just speaking about American Stage. There are great theaters in Florida, throughout Florida. There are great community theaters, and there are regional theaters, and there are LORT theaters. I want you to really think about, could you imagine a world without the theater? And so from just the prayers to buying a ticket, to telling a friend, to making a donation, it all matters in the end, because you matter to American Stage, you matter to us. And we can't do the work that we are working so hard to achieve without you, without your support. You know, the world can be very cynical, but the theater has always provided a safe space where you can rise above any kind of fear or doubt or insecurity or pain or hate or bigotry, and find the human common denominator among all of us. I've said this many times, and I'll share it tonight. One of the things that I love most about the theater growing up, and it only happens in the theater, across the theater. It doesn't matter if you're in New York, in front row, paying $1,000 seats, or if you're sitting in a little community theater in Kentucky or Nebraska, or in a church basement in Mississippi, or in Georgia, or in Florida. When the lights go to half and the lights go out, and it doesn't matter if you're sitting in the front row or the cheap seats like I did growing up, when those lights come up, magic, equality, it all happens. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, gay or straight, male or female, believer or not. We're all about to be awakened into going to a new world. And I think about the responsibility of being able to do that. Certainly the theater is a place where we're entertained. Certainly it is a place where we are healed, but it's also a classroom where we can be educated and learn from different perspectives. And so I hope that as we continue to journey on together, that we are not afraid to have honest, hard, uplifting, respectful, kind conversations around art and our community. I want American Stage to be beloved by all of St. Pete, not just one demographic. I want the entire city to wrap itself around our beautiful theater and know that we are better because you are part of this theater. We are better at American Stage because you know the value of it. Now, the responsibility for all of us as ambassadors is to go out into the community and tell our friends and tell our churches and tell our communities and tell our alumni associations and all the different clubs and membership groups that we belong to of what we know is a little secret, how great American Stage is. And so it's going to be all of us. And I have been blessed to be able to be the producing artistic director. But I like everyone at American Stage and everyone that purchases a ticket and every student we teach and every community leader we interact with and church leader, every person that is connected to our audience has that responsibility to go out and be an ambassador for the arts. And I'm not just saying if it's not for an American Stage, let it be for another theater. Let it be for the orchestra or the ballet or the opera. The arts matter. They matter because we matter, because lives matter. And so I hope that you will really take this charge and be inspired to know that the best is yet to come, but we can only achieve those things together. I remember my second Broadway show I worked on was a revival of the beloved, brilliant Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, the first Black woman to have a play on Broadway, starring the great Sidney Poitier and Ruby Dee. And our revival had the unbelievably talented cast that included Felicia Rashad and Audra McDonald and Sanaa Lathan. And what I learned in that show and what I carry with me every day at American Stage is that it matters that we tell stories about people, all people, not just the ones that can buy the tickets to see them, but for those who fall in the cracks, those that are marginalized, those that are on the fringes of our society, because we are all responsible. We are all connected in this circle that we call humanity. And I'm a true believer in this, growing up in the West Indies and in Brooklyn, New York, that what affects one of us affects all of us across the country. So if something affects us in St. Pete, you know it's going to affect someone across the country and in London and Afghanistan and in Africa and in Australia, because we're all vibrations, we're all human beings. And so as you tap into what is your vibe for American Stage, you may be into political plays, you might like the musicals, but I'm encouraging you to look at the entire season and see yourself reflected and challenge yourself to expose yourself to art that you might not think belongs to you or is for you or represents you. I challenge you to come and see and be awakened, to laugh, to cry, to dream, to get angry, to get inspired, to use your kitchen table the next day as a pulpit or a bullhorn or a healing spot for your family. That is the beauty of what we do. That is the gift of what we do. That is the responsibility of what we all do. So the journey ahead is one that is very important only if we can journey together. Value comes from what we invest in. Nelson Mandela says, we have such a finite amount of time on the earth. How will you spend your minutes? How will you spend your seconds? How will you spend your time? I feel very blessed to get to spend my time with you at this powerful, beautiful cultural institution who is on the precipice of even greater impact in the American theater. But we need all of you to do it. It takes a whole village to move the needle. And so it is out of revolution, responsibility, renaissance, regalness, that I, Rajendra, say thank you. Thank you for opening your hearts. Thank you for opening your arms. Thank you for opening your wallets. Thank you for opening your minds to what is possible for American Stage. Thank you for believing in the power of the American theater to be a lightning rod for social change. And I leave you with the prolific words of one of my heroes, the great Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "We must be the change we wish to see in the world." Be that change and continue to support American theater, to support the theater we're doing. And I just want you all to know that it matters. Theater matters. You matter. There is room at the table to be seen, to be heard, and to know that your story matters. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you at the theater.